by officials, and at least from our perspective, this compromises voter secrecy in these cases within the context of the Somaliland voting system. And this was, of course, regardless, conducted in an open and highly transparent manner, which is commendable with the agreements of all the party agents. Stations were generally accessible, and there were instances of assistance by private citizens or by the security forces. Most polling stations closed at 1800 hours, although a number of them allowed those already present in the queues to vote, and the generally slow pace of voting, about between 20 to 30 votes being cast per hour, meant that voting continued in one case as witnessed until 8 o'clock in the evening. The security of voting was laborious and time-consuming, but it was very thorough. Vote counting, too, was generally quite slow, and this, I think, Mr. Chairman, reflected the often very tired state of a number of the officials who had worked an extraordinarily long day, often in quite difficult conditions, hot and uncomfortable conditions, and by the time of the late evening, of course, quite dark conditions with minimal lighting. COVID-19 was not particularly well observed. There was very little in the way of social distancing, but we did note that officials were issued with face masks as well. In terms of the general observations, and this is perhaps the meat of our observations overall, this is the 8th democratic election in Somaliland and serves to strengthen its democratic tradition in a region not known for its democratic character. This should be recognized by the world, we maintain, and especially supported by Africa. Voting was generally peaceful, characterized by high levels of trust and enthusiasm from the electorate, which assisted in overcoming any frailties in election management. The conduct of the election illustrates overall for our members the existence of an effective state governed by its own unique form of social contract. The National Electoral Commission, from our perspective, effectively administered a complex and logistically demanding election, but there is scope for improvements according to its own regulations and laws. We can always get better at our job, and we will be coming up in a matter of time, after we've allowed some of these issues to digest, and of course the results to come out, with some recommendations for the government and the NEC. There was largely consensus on disputes inside the polling stations. In Somaliland, and this is a general comment, the software appears to work exceptionally well, despite the often rudimentary conditions and widespread poverty that we saw. And this centers on the trust in society and the implicit confidence within the NEC. The hardware, which often people in the West are very concerned about, the hardware in these circumstances is a secondary tool and consideration. Local civil society was admirably represented, though dependent on the qualities of the local observers. SONSAF, in particular, we would single out as a cost-effective means for donors to support democracy in action. The Somaliland proportional representation system is complex, especially for illiterate voters, but the lack of a winner-takes-all system makes for a political environment where loss does not mean dramatic ethnic and other exclusion from power and economic opportunity. And we understand the context and the evolution of this system within Somaliland's own character. The calm that characterized the process, The lack of party rancor on the day not only demonstrates people's implicit confidence in the process, but that Somaliland has used its own permutation of a modern democratic model to manage inter-clan cleavages. Allowing 15-year-old voters, and I had to think about this a little bit, Mr. Chairman, my youngest child is 15 years old. Allowing 15-year-old voters is a striking feature of Somaliland's democracy, but may assist in empowering a sense of responsibility and assist as well, including a critical and large demographic. The country has built on peace based organically on social consensus from the bottom up and developed a stable political environment centered around democratic participation, which contains tensions and mediates conflict through democratic choice. This was particularly noteworthy from our perspective, again, during these elections. The three political parties contesting the election appear to share a view that there's democratic progress. Although conditions, as I've already indicated, were somewhat rudimentary in cases, a can-do, consensus-based approach by all political parties and officials quickly resolved problems on the day to the satisfaction of all. On election day, there was a prominent presence of security officials who were preoccupied with managing queues, which threatened in some cases to become disruptive in some locations. No security force interference with voting in any polling station was, however, observed. The election, as I've already said, was observed by 2 international missions and a large independent domestic NGO, which deployed over 900 monitors to polling stations. The level of cooperation with the NEC, which cooperated and shared information freely with us, is commendable and, at least from the perspective of this mission, highly appreciated. International monitors, such as we were, and observers, appeared to be welcomed everywhere we went, and even honoured in some polling stations. And it was indeed a great honour to participate in these elections as such an observer or monitor. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps most importantly, from what the Brenthurst Foundation's mission saw during its period and scope of observation, the 31st of May 2021 Somaliland election process was free, fair, and credible. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them. If the journalists present have any questions. Otherwise, I'll ask the chairman to say a few words. You have a question?
You were able to basically, these things are based on your capacity to have 250 units.
250 countrywide.
Countrywide, okay, put together. So how do you place them side by side, given the fact that the democratic process, any electionary, election anywhere in the world, the age limit really matters. That's number one question. And then you said that biometrics, that the biometrics voter verification works in some areas, and also there are some polling units that did not use biometrics. How do you justify this in view of the credibility of the elections? Then the involvement of the security in the casting of ballots. So, what's your overview of this?
Well, let me tackle your first question, if I may, on the specific setup of the Somaliland elections. We are not here to make comment on how Somaliland runs itself. We're not here to suggest modifications to its laws, and there's good reason for it to have a 15-year-old limit in terms of its voters. So I would leave that to the chairman to comment on. It is a striking feature of Somaliland's democratic setup, but it's one that appears to work for Somaliland. And if it works for you, then I guess that's exactly, in this case Somaliland, that's exactly why it's done so. On biometrics, this was largely an offline election. This was a manual election. As you know, there were challenges with the biometric iris system, and I understand that these will be put in place and these recommendations will be put in place for the next election. But the manual system, given the relatively low number of people per polling station, was effective. Sometimes what we saw, there were challenges between people who had formal ID cards and those, I'm being attacked by a fly, a particularly persistent one, people who had formal ID cards and those who had blue temporary ID cards. But these seemed, as I pointed out in my brief report, to be handled to the satisfaction of those present in the matter. So there's, of course, scope for improvement in that biometric process and in the digitization of the voters roll over time. And again, perhaps you can ask the chairman about it. We saw no instances of security force intimidation, of interference in the election process. Again, there are cultural norms here at play. The presence of relatively large numbers of policemen and soldiers in the proximity both provides security but also provides a presence. So that seems to be something that most people in Somaliland are happy with. And a degree of crowd control is certainly necessary to cope with the level of anticipation, excitement, and eagerness that people had to vote. There were a lot of people trying to get into those polling stations virtually the entire day. So greater speed with greater efficiency would undoubtedly make this process a little easier. But we're dealing with very large numbers. More than 1.1 million registered voters, 2,709, I understand, polling centres. This is a considerable geography to cover as well, and that has to be borne in mind at the same time. How do I see that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Well, as I said right at the beginning, and thank you for your question, as I said right at the beginning, the democratic character of Somaliland is perhaps its most significant tool of all, not just in terms of the way in which it resolves conflicts internally, which is very important, and the way in which it builds nationhood, which is crucial, but also in the way in which it distinguishes itself from much of the rest of the region. So I think the evolution of your process of democracy from under the tree in Barao, and the group that went to Barao and Sheikh went to the former colonial governor's residence, where the initial peace conference was held and signed in 1991, and it was very important to go there to see the journey that Somaliland has taken. This is part of your character. This is part of your stability. This is part of your success. So I believe that Somaliland and democracy are entwined as a concept. Sorry, say that again. Well, if you look around you, Somaliland, if you take the indicators of freedom, if you take the indicators of Freedom House, for example, which is a relatively consistent ranking over many years, Somaliland is only one of two countries in the near region which is classified as party free. Every other country in the immediate proximity and in the second ring of states is classified firmly as unfree. So I think that answers your question. I think Somaliland, along with Kenya, are the only two countries in the East African, Horn of African region which fall into the party free or free categories. The rest of them are the unfree categories, and that gives it a standout character. So I'm struggling with a combination of masks and language. What's the message I am carrying to Somaliland? The message is we admire terrifically what we have seen in terms of how you have built a democratic process and society with very little in the way of resources. And very importantly, there's been a process of democratic consolidation over the last 30 years. And from what we saw, albeit within the limited scope and ambition of our observer mission, what we saw would suggest that these elections, as per the time frame that we were here, are free, fair, and credible.
You are Philistine. My name is I'm from Monkey TV. You are Philistine based in the capital city of Somaliland for the last days. Can you tell us about what you have seen in Somaliland, and at the same time, what other nations, especially developed nations like us, learn from us?
Well, I was reminded that I've actually, it's almost the 20th anniversary of my first visit to Somaliland. So I would characterize by what I see in Hargeisa as slow but steady progress. And we also drove down to Berbera and then on to Barao and Sheikh. I was in that particular group. And of course the development of the corridor and the development of the port of Berbera is a significant transformation for Somaliland. So while many challenges continue to exist, challenges that we saw evidence of in these elections around illiteracy, the development of human capital, which is your greatest asset of all ultimately. There are undoubtedly challenges around that, but we have seen steady progress from when I first came here from 20 years ago. I can only speak from within the lens of my own experience. And while many in this region have suffered democratic setback and developmental setbacks, Somaliland's progress has continued, perhaps not as fast as some Somalilanders would prefer, but it has been, as I say, steady over the last 20 years. I'll take the last three questions, if I may, and also acknowledge the former Minister, Dr. Edna, in our presence. Dr. Edna.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. President, and Honourable Chairman of Bedford's Trust, and dear observers from near and far, as a Somalilander, it is a great honour and a pleasure that we could offer the environment that has made possible for you who came from other countries to share this important moment with Somaliland. And as someone who has witnessed elections in other countries, and also as someone who has experienced elections in the democratic, free, and fair environment that we all witnessed yesterday. As a citizen of Somaliland who participated as a voter in the process yesterday, this was the 8th time that I was able to participate in the elections from the referendum of 2001 to the elections that happened yesterday. Every single one of them was successful from the very first beginning in 2001, when we had absolutely no experience and no knowledge of democratic elections prior to 2001. It is an honor and a pleasure that we could see that the spirit of confidence, efficiency, and enthusiasm that I witnessed yesterday is proof of the maturity of Somaliland, the proof of the efficiency of the electoral machinery that has been put in place. And I am proud that I was able to witness that. Of course, the elections were done by human beings. And there are always things to improve. Every process needs to be, we learn from it, and if there are shortcomings or if there are issues that need to be changed and improved, we learn from it and we do it. My experience and what I witnessed yesterday was something that the world should be proud of, something that not only Somalilanders should be proud of, but it's something that Africa needs to be proud of, and the world. Anybody who believes in freedom, democracy, should be proud of. Yes, I would request that there should be more female personnel to assist female voters, maybe more female police women. I would also insist that those who have impaired vision and disabilities should be assisted so they can participate in that process. But whatever was done right because we Somalilanders wish it to be right. And if anything was short of what we expected, it is not because we wish it to be wrong, but maybe we did not know how to improve on it. So we invite the world to help us perfect anything that needs to be perfected. We cannot compare Somaliland's elections to any elections that have taken place in other Somali territories, because Somalia has never held an election. They have not been able to hold a nomination to nominate a president. Somalia has not been able to put 500 people together, and I'm proud that Somaliland has been able to register 1.1 voters. My final comment, to clarify this, for those who do not know Somali culture, is that when somebody reaches the age of 15, in our culture, in our tradition, that person is considered to be mature enough to be responsible for his or her life and for that of others. So the age of 15, yes, other countries do not allow or do not have that process. Voters expect to be older than that. But this is a custom and tradition that has served us well from generation to generation. And that is why Somaliland's system works. Because we respect our traditions and we abide by it and we honor our pledges. In any competition, there will be one or two who will try to get there before the other or try to pretend to be what they are not. But there is a system in place that makes sure that there are checks and balances. And I'm so honored that you have been able to witness this with us. I am proud that the process took place yesterday in a free and fair manner as is possible. Coming to the biometric, yes, some polling stations did not even have electricity. But the biometric system was there to issue the voter card in the first place. And there was a picture of every voter on the card. So if this picture did not match the face of the person who presented it, then that was considered to be not valid. So fingerprints were taken, as had been done in the past. Pictures were there to prove that this is the rightful carrier of that card. And the system also put in place that there should be privacy. Now, a request that I'm making to the international community is that we should take into consideration that a big majority of the people of Somaliland cannot read. So having instructions on the back of the card regarding where elections should be, where this person could cast his vote, I think this needs to be prepared a bit better, and maybe a week before the next elections, people should be reminded not only by SMS, because some elderly people may not have access to that, but to make sure that every constituency reminds its people, the 400 or 350 or 500 expected voters there, that they know exactly where to go to cast their vote. So, finally, it went well. There's one or two little things that could be improved, but there is no election anywhere in the world where elections were perfect to 100%. I would give Somaliland a 99% perfection. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we have very limited time. We have, unfortunately, we have aeroplanes to catch. It's Thank you very much, Dr. Edna, for your input. I'm very mindful of the time that we have available. So I would like now to present a copy of this report, hot off the press, to the chairman of the NEC and ask him, in the tradition that we now shake hands, to say a few words. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
His Excellency, the leader of the team, His Excellency, the President, former President of Sierra Leone, Honorable Dr. Adna Aden, ambassadors, dignitaries, Dr. Chama, all of you, good afternoon. I don't think I have today words to express what you're expecting from me. But the good thing is, you all know what I know. We all were together, and I think there's nothing much to tell you. In fact, you were in the field, mostly in the office, then you know a lot of things. Thank you very much. We appreciate, in the first place, this report. And at the same time, we appreciate your presence. That was part of the fuel, really part of the fuel to do the job. And I believe we did the job, but I personally believe we need a long way to go, our system. And we are ready for that, and we are planning to go. And if I might say, Somalilander, I'm a Somaliland. Democratization is not started now. It's a very old thing. Thousands of years, Somalilanders used to select their leaders. Everything they want to do, it used to go under the tree and select. So selection or election was really thousands and thousands of years. So in that it's easy. Our people, if they have the system to follow, because I think it was a traditional, it was things long time. They know, and everybody knew, that the leaders and the head has to be selected from the society. So that's why I think it's easy for us. And of course we also part of the world, and we see what's going around us and how the election is happening. And that also teaches us how to improve and how to develop our, if I say, a previous system of elections and selections. So, thank you very much. I think I'll call you today all ambassadors, Somaliland. We accept you, all ambassadors to Somaliland. Going back home, I think we're not gonna give you any message to take. You already have. So thank you very much, and we wish you all safe journey, reach home, and never ever forget Somaliland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to conclude, if I may, with two things. One is to say a great thanks to all the Somalilanders present for the hospitality that they have shown our group during the course of the last week. Our group, as I mentioned, comprises individuals from Uganda, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, of course, the President and his team from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Namibia, Mozambique, Tanzania, and if I may separate it out briefly, Zanzibar. So more than 10 African constituencies which have been here to observe an extraordinary event. Thank you. So, congratulations.